for everybody to get in, and then we will start.
All guests have been muted. You can unmute your line by pressing *6. All guests have been muted. You can unmute your line by pressing *6. This meeting is now being recorded.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the 10 Steps to S4 and to the Work Package 03, which is all about the logistic preparation activities. Alessandro Sobigiussi speaking, and today I will guide you through the content of the Work Package. Before starting with today's work package, I would like to, as usual, check where we are in the execution of the program, and after this we will do a recap of the previous work package so that we are all aligned on the current status, and then we will dig into today's topic. Here you can see the first week of the program. We are on the work package 3, so Tuesday. And today, as said, is all about logistic preparation. Yesterday we started the execution of the program with the work package 2. That was all about the generic preparation activities. So we went through readiness check, maintenance planner, custom code, completing business functions and add-ons, and finally the pre-checks. Tomorrow we will continue the execution of the program with the finance-related activities for the preparation of the conversion, and finally on Thursday for this week we will start the technical conversion. This will also end the week in terms of work packages, so you will have the full day of Thursday and Friday in order to complete the technical conversion. That will take some time. And with that, we will end the first week of the execution, and then we will continue next week on Monday with work package 6, that is going to be all about finance conversion. That is something not part of the technical conversion, so the finance-related customizing and data will be then converting afterwards on Monday, and we will, after that, continue with work package 7 on Tuesday next week. That is about post-conversion activities. This will include some mandatory activities and also some optional activities we have added on top of that to enhance the scope of the converted system, like, for example, the PPE, as you can see there. After that, we have the Wednesday, where we will execute 2 different work packages, and this will be work package 8 and 9, which is all about the Fiori configuration, and then finally we'll conclude the execution with work package 10. This is on Friday. Sorry for the dates. I realize they are wrong, but we will change that in the presentation we upload to the channel. Okay, let's have a look to the content for today. Today we will start reviewing the previous work package. We will do that at every single work package. So we will check the content and review what happened in the previous day. Sorry for that execution. Please go in mute if you are not talking, so we avoid. Okay. Perfect. I was saying that we will start reviewing the previous work package. This will allow us to see from yesterday if there are open questions, open doubts, and we will take the chance to underline some concepts if that's required. And then we will directly dig into the today's work package activities, and in this case, for today, majority of the time is going to be spent on the logistic preparation activities for business partner with the customer vendor integration. Today, we will spend majority of the time there with the full presentation on the concept, on the reasons, on the procedure, and on the impacts. And then we will continue with other 2 smaller topics that are storage location MRP and the material numbers in length. Finally, as usual, closure and call to action. So that's the agenda and the content for today. And with that, let's start directly with the review of the previous work package. That was work package 2. Yesterday, during the session, we have seen how to connect to the landscape. It was the first day of the execution, so you had also to test and validate the connection. After that, we touched the topic of readiness check, where we had activities to do on that. We touched the topic of maintenance planner. In this case, there were no activities to perform. and also the custom code analysis checks, and this was included in the activities to do, and the pre-checks with the tool or framework called simplification item check. Now let's have a look to the different activities. The first one was the connect to the landscape. You have seen how you can connect to the terminal server. That's the .31 server, where you can work then to execute all the activities that require a connection to your source or target system. We have seen yesterday a couple of messages related to this connection, and it's important that you internally align on the connection, because as you have seen, you have two different users to connect to the terminal server, and these users have a unique connection, which means if another colleague of yours connects with the same, this colleague will take your session. So it's important that you align on the activities. We don't think, or so far there was no requirement to have a lot of multiple or parallel connections, since in any case the activities will have to be performed once only. So with that you can connect and execute everything. For the rest, another important point, yesterday we received some messages and questions about the connection to what you see here as the S4HANA Application Server Linux. Some of you have tried the connection without succeeding. That's totally normal. Because as we said yesterday already, this server is going to be down until we really need that. That is next week on Tuesday for the Work Package 7. So until that time, this server here is down, and so there is no need to connect to that, and also you cannot test the connection since it is not available. Second things from yesterday, a readiness check. Here there were the activities to be performed. For some of you...
It is not a passcode that I can confirm. Please try entering your passcode again, followed by the pound or hash key.
Okay, sorry for that. Some of you, to prepare the report, that to re-execute some of the required reports. So you have seen also this particular situation. In the example was the sizing report that had to be re-executed. And after that, you are able to export all the information that are required in order to then upload those files into the readiness check. We have seen that the majority of the readiness check has been created, so we hope you have been able then afterwards to analyze the content and check the content, which is one of the most important things related to the readiness check, because as said yesterday, the work does not end when the report is generated, but it actually begins there, because then you have the possibility to go inside the details and check all the complexity and all the different requirements for the conversion. Yesterday we have also checked the maintenance planner, being one of the first steps that is required for the execution of a conversion. We have seen how this step can give you a transparency on the add-on and business functions that are supported or not for the conversion to S4HANA. And since we have seen yesterday how this can potentially block a conversion, it is a really important step to be performed in order to have the check and the verification already done, so you are sure that that system can be converted, at least from a technical point of view. Note here there were no activities required, so some of you tried to execute the maintenance planner, but as said yesterday, this is not required in our program because it's been already executed, and the result of this activity, which is the static XML file, has been made already available so that you can execute your conversion. Okay. Another activity that was required yesterday in terms of execution as well is the custom code checks. In this case, we haven't seen any specific doubts. There was just one issue related to the download of the simplification database, and we have made the simplification database available in the terminal server that you access, so that in case you have issues on downloading the file, you can directly take the file from there. And once this is done, and once you have imported the file, you should be able to analyze the custom code, create the result, and then go through the result. As already said yesterday, really important, we will stop today, at the end of the day, the server where you can execute this ABAP check. So really important, if you have not yet finished with the activities here, to get done by today, so that you are in time to execute, but also to analyze the result and check what kind of details you can get from the custom code analysis. Finally, yesterday we have seen the pre-checks that are the best introduction for the today's work package, since one of the results you have seen for sure here was related to the business partner. So that is one mandatory activity that is going to be checked by the simplification item check framework, and it is really important since, as you can see here, you have two different phases in your project where this pre-check report is executed. One is during the preparation, and that's what you have done yesterday. Another one is the execution of this report automatically by the technical conversion executed with the software data manager. And that is done just to make sure that all the work analyzing and solving the issue on the pre-checks has been already executed by you. So it means in case there is still some red error message or some blocking message, the technical conversion is not going to be proceeding with the steps, but it's going to be blocked until you solve all the issues. So it's important to analyze the content of this report and to get done with all the steps, so that then you can proceed with the technical conversion. Okay. That said, we have reviewed all the activities from yesterday. So this is what happened yesterday, and now let's start with today's content. In particular, with the logistic preparation activities. And as said, there are three different topics we would like to touch today. And the first one is the business partner with the customer vendor integration. We have prepared a full presentation for you related to these topics, since it's a change, a really relevant change between ECC and S/4HANA, and for this reason we thought it was the case to go deeper into the topic, showing you context and motivation, showing you what is the impact on the system, and obviously showing you how you do this conversion and how you manage business partners during this conversion. And then we will have a look to custom code and interfaces. in terms of impact due to this change. We will also have a look to the impact on the surrounding systems, and finally some lessons learned, some considerations about the approach, and obviously additional information and where you can get them. Okay, let's get started with the context and motivation. So why SAP decided to do this change? It's pretty straightforward. So we already knew that the master data managed having customers and vendors as separate objects had some limitations in the way it was created in the past on ECC. And here you can see some examples of the limitations. So one single address that was possible. There was no relation between a vendor and the customer that in the real world are the same entity. So it was only possible to connect that to a customer or to a vendor, but not to create a real relationship. The person was not an available object, and there was no time dependency, for example, in the assignment of an address or a specific role to that entity. Now, with the business partner, we have most of those limitations that are managed and that can be managed using the objects. So in this case, first of all, we have a general data that are shared across different roles. We have different types of business partner that are identified by categories. We have a category for organizations or companies, another one for persons, and another one for groups. We can have one business partner that basically is assigned to different roles, and with that we can represent, for example, a company that is a customer but also a vendor or supplier for us at the same time. And in this case we represent that company only once, and then we assign multiple. We can assign multiple addresses to that business partner. We can do that also having a time dependency on the assignment. That's the same for the bank details as well. And we can create relationship between business partners. So, for example, a contact person can be created as an additional business partner, and then can be connected to the customer or the vendor for that contact person, having a relationship of the type is contact person for. And as you can really well understand, this provides basically a more harmonized architecture to manage the business partners. This is not a new concept, so business partner as such has not been introduced and delivered with S/4HANA. It was already part of ECC, but was required only on specific scenarios, like for example collection management or credit management, and it was also part of other applications on the as part of the business suite. So it was, for example, part of CRM or SCM, and for some scenarios also in this case it was required, so you had to set up the business partner. Now, when we talk about business partner, and so far we didn't mention customer vendor integration, this word, so customer vendor integration or CVI always comes up. So CVI or customer vendor integration in this case or in this context is the interface, so the component that can ensure synchronization between business partner and the customer and vendor objects. The synchronization can happen in both directions, and we will see in a second why this is so important and required. Here in this slide we check that, and in particular here you can see how business partner master data works once the system is already converted to S/4HANA. So once you are in S/4HANA for a net new customer or for an existing customer that does a conversion, the business partner creation is the first step to create a customer and a supplier. So you don't have the possibility anymore to directly create a customer or a supplier or vendor, as it is called in S4, but you always have to create a business partner. Then what happens is that technically the customer-vendor integration will take care of the synchronization of the business partner data you have created to the related customer and vendor master data, which means, as you can see in the picture, you save a new business partner, and then the save operation on the business partner will trigger the creation of the related customer or vendor, depending on the role you have assigned to the business partner. This means also that partially the data is replicated, it's redundant between the business partner, for example, the generic data, and the customer that is replicated. The synchronization, once you are in S4, will happen every time you create a new business partner, but also every time you save changes to a business partner. So if you change something and then you save, this save will basically trigger the change on the related customer and vendor, depending obviously if that's relevant for this master data or not. So this is how this works once you are in S4. We will see in a second how this works in terms of conversion and synchronization. So also to answer the question in the chat, this will be explained in the following part of the presentation. So stay tuned, you will see the answer in a second. The distribution of business partner is also provided by the interfaces or external functionalities in S/4HANA, which means also creating or updating a business partner by using an IDOC or a web service. You will then trigger exactly the same process. Here you can see how this works in terms of relationship. So we have the business partner model on the left-hand side, and we have the vendor and customer master data on the right-hand side with all the different views that were available and that are available for the business partner. And here you can see how, for example, the view in the business partner that is called ERP vendor or ERP customer relates directly to the data that you can normally maintain as part of the customer or the vendor or supplier into the ECC world. The address was already in common. Obviously, this is also already in common when we are talking about the business partner. Now, impact. The first thing that is really important for a conversion to S4 is that the customer-vendor integration has to be in place before you can do a conversion to S4HANA. So it is not just an activity that will be performed during the conversion, but it is a prerequisite for the conversion itself. So that's why yesterday when you executed the pre-check and you have seen the result, the fact that not all the customers and vendors were replicated and synchronized with business partner, in fact will block the conversion. So this is a prerequisite and all the customization and configuration will have to be performed before you can start with the technical conversion. The transaction BP is the single entry point after the conversion to S/4HANA to create, to edit, and to display all the master data that is related to business partner, as well as obviously to customers and vendors, since all of them will be synchronized to business partner. The only thing that remains outside of this transaction are the mass changes. For that there are other transactions that will be showed afterwards in this presentation. But all the other actions or steps that are on single entities will have to be performed from transaction BP. The previous transactions that were available in ECC, including reports, conditions, records or forms and so on, will continue to work in the same way in S/4HANA. So every time that we had a transaction that was expecting to have a customer or a vendor number, this will continue to work in this way. Obviously, that customer will have a business partner linked to that, and so that the entire system can remain consistent. But to avoid to impact and change all these transactions and reports, the same objects will be used. And since we have just seen that in any case the business partner creation or change will always trigger the synchronization of that data to the related customer or vendor, this means that both the objects will be always up to date. Another impact is related to the BAPI that you are using maybe to do an integration or maybe to do a mass load or upload of business partner. In this case, there is this function called CVIAE inbound main, and this is the one that will automatically trigger the customer vendor integration interface, so it is important to use this one. As you have already seen, there is a change on the naming. This change is then reflected in all the Fiori applications and in all the new things we developed in the context of S/4HANA, and the old vendor name or terminology we used in ERP is now called supplier in S/4HANA. The customer vendor integration and the business partner itself was not mandatory previously as part of the so-called SAP Simple Finance or S/4HANA Finance on-premise, and this means that only if you do a conversion to an S/4HANA Enterprise Management or full scope, you will have to do these activities. So including if you have a customer that is already on S/4HANA Finance and wants to go for the full S/4HANA, then in this process or project you will have to manage customer vendor integration as well. Now, these are the ECC transactions that were previously available in order to create, edit, or view or change a customer and a vendor. And now in the S/4HANA world, since this is not anymore possible directly, these transactions are no longer available, and whenever it's possible, they will be redirected directly to the BP transaction. When it's not possible, they will simply not work, and you know that in this case, you will have to use the BP transaction in order to execute the same step or the same activity. Here are some topics that are related to customer vendor integration that are more detailed. First of all, the customer vendor functionality are taken over by business partner. So in the note you will see the explanation of all these operations and activities you can do. The SD customer can still be used with all the details that you used to specify in that part. It's just a function that you can activate as part of BP transaction. There is a specific view for that, so that you can go and maintain all the details. And as well, from the same view, you will be able to change the customer account group. So it can be changed there directly. We have integrated the view in the same transaction. We have also the concept of, okay, I see all the questions today seems to be perfectly aligned with our agenda, so we will touch this point afterwards in the presentation. I was saying that we also have the concept of a prospect that becomes a customer. If you are using, for example, also the CRM as part of the integration, this is managed normally. And this is handled in S4HANA with the creation of a business partner with the role prospect. This role will not trigger the creation of the native, so the KNA1 object as before in ECC, but whenever you change the role from prospect into customer, so in this case the related role is called SLCU01, this will then trigger the creation of the related customer. Hierarchies are possible, so it can be used in the same way for customers and vendors as before. And that said, we have transactions to do mass maintenance of customers or vendors, and these are available here. We also have a Fiori application for mass maintenance that you will be able to use in order to do that in Fiori directly. Now, let's switch to the how-to part so that we can have a look to the procedure. First of all, here you see a summary of the procedure, depending if you are doing a new implementation. In this case, you will have to typically to upload the business partner, being their customers or vendors. And once you do that, then as said in S4HANA by default, the customer vendor integration synchronization will take care of creating the corresponding customer vendors and contacts. So the typical KNA1 table is going to be filled anyway with those details. Now, the second one that is on the bottom part of the slide is what is interesting for us, because on top of what's happened to the S-forward in the right-hand side, we also have to manage the first part, which is basically during the preparation of the conversion, we will have to do the first step of synchronizing all customers, vendors, and business partner into all customers, vendors, and contact person into business partner. So this will be your task for today, doing this first conversion, and then whenever all the customers, vendors, and contact person are synchronized to business partner, we are ready for the conversion. And after the conversion is done, whenever you do a change or you create a new business partner, the system will behave as before. Now, the CDI process, as I said before, will be part of the preparation activities. SAP recommends to do archiving on customers and vendors, so you can clean up the system before you start dealing with all customers and vendors. This obviously will help you having a system that is clean and that includes only data that is really required. And also, we will see that just in a second, we recommend from SAP, as far as this is possible, to maintain the same numbering for customers and vendors. So exactly the same code you had before. The precondition for a customer-vendor integration is the ERP release. So the ERP has to be 6.0, and this can be announcement package 0 to 8. There is no limitation on that. And basically, if you remember, or if you already know that, we said that a conversion to S4 in general, without talking about business partner and customer vendor integration, is possible only if you have an ERP 6.0, even without any announcement package, as a source system. And now with this precondition, we also discover why this is a limitation. And the limitation is exactly the customer vendor integration. So since customer vendor integration is part of the system only from ERP 6.0, before that it would not be possible to do the preparation. Here you see that if you have announcement package to 4, there are some limitations for contact person, so it's important to apply the note so that the functionalities related to that will be uploaded into the system, and you have all the functionalities you need in order to do the synchronization of contact person. In terms of skill required, you will see that in a second, majority of the skill set is related to the functional and customizing knowledge for customers and vendors and business partner, obviously. We have also something related to the business processes for the number range determination that we will check. Here we have the full process, that's a full S/4HANA conversion, and here in the picture you see mapped all the activities that are required in the context of customer vendor integration. So we have the preparation of the customer vendor integration that is part of the preparation of a conversion. Here we have things like the configuration with all the customizing and the announcements as well. Then we have the customizing check, which is performed by a report we will see in a second, as well as the activation of some business functions if you are already after announcement package 4. And once all this preparation is done, so the system is basically ready for the synchronization of business partner, then we will use the synchronization cockpit in order to do this specific replication from customer vendor to business partner. Then we have the completion check, which is another report you can execute in order to make sure that every customer, partner, and contact person is synchronized to the business partner. And this is, by the way, the same that will be checked by the pre-check report you have executed yesterday. So only when this activity of synchronization is completed successfully, then the pre-check will result in a success. Afterwards, we continue with the conversion. In this case, there is the software data manager, so the technical conversion that will be executed. At this point, there are no specific activities, and once the conversion is completed, the synchronization in the direction from business partner to customer and vendor will be activated, and then you can test that the behavior of that synchronization works correctly, and at this point, basically the activities will be completed. Now, let's start from the preparation part. The preparation part includes all the announcements and configuration, as well as the customizing, and we will see now specific conversion steps that are related to that part. So let's start with the archiving. The archiving, as said, is optional but recommended. The reason why we are talking about archiving is that business partner will be synchronized from customer and vendor, and this synchronization will happen even if a specific customer or vendor is basically already flagged for deletion. So even if you have already flagged in the past or you flagged before starting with the synchronization those objects for deletion, then in any case the cockpit for synchronization will synchronize those objects simply because they are not yet archived or deleted. So we assume even if you flag them for deletion, they are still used or still required. Now, in order to do the archiving, we have the typical archiving process for customer and vendor. First of all, you will have to flag those for deletion, and in this case, you will be able to do the archiving following the typical procedure with the typical archiving objects. If some of the links are not working, we will provide you the right link. I will check that immediately after this call. Now, the second step that is required for the preparation is the download of the SIP reports. I already mentioned a couple of those in order to do the checks and to verify that all the synchronization happened successfully. So we have the notes that include all these different reports. We also have some additional ones that are nice to have. For example, we have one related to the Excel upload option for the synchronization cockpit you will use. So you can upload the data into the cockpit without having to specify that manually. This is one thing in your system. So in the system you are accessing, in your source system, all these nodes have been already implemented. Basically not all of them, but the ones that are required in order to execute the steps, so that you are already ready to go in terms of activities, and you can simply execute and see how this looks like. The enhancements are another really important part of a conversion, because obviously when we talk about customer vendor integration and the possibility of doing the synchronization, potentially those customer and vendor objects can be already changed or customized compared to the standard that we offer from SAP, because that specific customer wanted to manage additional fields, for example, or additional functionalities. So in this case, you will have to check and integrate all these announcements also in the business partner world. So in this case, we will provide you the documentation and the how-to guides in these two notes. I will explain that in more details in a second. As said, we have the business function that needs to be activated. These business functions are not already available in every system, but only from Enhancement Package 4. So in this case, if you are not yet there, make sure to implement the correct functionalities and the correct nodes you see here, so that you can anyhow activate and include all the features you need then afterwards to do the same. Okay. That said, at this point we have to activate some customizing. You will see all these details reflected in the activity document, obviously, because you will have to do all the customizing and to activate all the specific settings that are required for that. So here you see the post-processing order you will have to activate. Then you have to define the synchronization direction, so from customer to business partner, from vendor to business partner. and to activate the trigger for the replication, you will have to activate the creation of PPO for a specific component. Talking about customization, we have here the most important part of customization, and that's basically the number range. So the number range part is when you decide basically how to deal with the different numberings for business partner, and this is obviously really close connected to what was your numbering and number range for customers and vendors. From SAP, we have basically a suggestion, a recommendation, which is to maintain the number ranges for customers and vendors exactly the same when you go to business partner. As said before, in some transactions that were previously available, in any case, customers and vendors will be still used, and for this reason, to make life much easier for end users, it's gonna be a much better solution if you can keep exactly the same number. Obviously, since previously you had two objects and now you have just one, this may not be possible in all the cases. Here you see two different cases that are probably a bit simplified, but is to at least outline the basic concept. And the first one is a situation where number ranges are not overlapping for customer and vendor. So you have defined two number ranges that are different, that starts from different numbering and so on. And in this case, we simply suggest to keep the same. So there is a configuration in customizing that I will show you in the next slide, and you simply identify this configuration with the maintain the same, and then exactly the same number will be basically used. If the customer and vendor number ranges are overlapping, then it will not be possible to maintain the same, obviously, because some of them will overlap between customer and vendors. In this case, we suggest you to simply execute a count of the number of objects that your customer has created in terms of customers and vendors, and to maintain the number range on the object that has most of the entities created in the system, so that most of the number can be simply reused, and you will just change the object where you have the minority of the entities creating. So this is the way we suggest to manage this. And here you see where you can do that. So there are three activities for the number range determination. First one is to define and assign the customer number ranges. Then you have the same for the vendor. And then you have the number for the groupings. So in this case, it's directly related to business partner, and we have the group determination with a specific number range. So these are the activities where once you have decided how to handle this, you can then specify the related customizing configuration. Another topic related to number range is the topic of the internal number range. The internal number range is used for the contact person. So this will be basically used in order to get an internal number that is then used for a contact person, that is a customer contact person, for example. Also in this case, we need to make sure that you don't have any overlap, even if it's an internal numbering. So it is important to define this one, as said, show here basically, and to define how you handle this. Here you see that in case you have the overlap of the contact person with the associated business partner, being that, for example, the customer, and then the customizing itself, you will be able to configure that successfully, even if there is this overlapping, simply because there are two number ranges, but then when you do the synchronization, you will get an error. So it's important to also handle this in the correct way. Now, talking about things that you have to handle and you have to manage during the project, another important part is the announcements. We have already mentioned that briefly before, but this can be a really big topic in terms of customer-vendor integration. So here the process is basically related to the possibility of your customer to enhance the customer, the vendor, or even the contact person master data with additional fields, for example. And in this case, obviously, you will have to analyze the situation and understand if the business partner can already handle this additional information. And then most probably you will have to work with the different mapping rules in order to synchronize that specific additional field you have on customer or on vendor to the related business partner. Otherwise, if we are talking about additional fields that are not managed by the business partner either, then if that information is still required, you will have to basically enhance the business partner definition as well. And here you can see how this works. So we have different bodies that are defined in order to do that, and we have a specific procedure that is described in the last note. You see here, where also a template of the source code to define a mapping is outlined. In this case, we do not provide a graphical mapping mechanism. It's rather the extension of our mapping where you can put additional code and move all this data as well. Okay. The mapping is related to announcements, but is also related to obviously the other standard fields, and this is part of your customizing in the preparation of the synchronization. So there are different fields and attributes of customers and vendors that will have to be mapped with the corresponding business partner attributes. Here you can see first of all the roles. So here we see the group, first of all, that you can have on customers, and how this will be then reflected into roles that are assigned to the corresponding business partner that will be created. So here you see that for customer, we have two groups, two roles that will be assigned, company data and sales data, and for vendor as well, with the purchasing data in that case. So this is the basic mapping we always do. And then for the customer vendor account group, also a business partner group must be available. And once this is available, then you define here which group you would like to assign, so that you have always a one-to-one mapping in this. Okay, the mapping is not completed. Obviously, there are a lot of additional attributes you can have, and here you see the list of those and how you can then define the mapping. On the right-hand side, you see the pro transaction with all the different entries in customizing for that. And we have then mapping for contact persons, department number, assignment functions, authority, VIP indicator, as well as the marital status, legal, payment cards, and industry. So these are all things you will have to maintain as well in order to have the mapping between the two objects. Now, all these things are then checked in terms of customizing and mapping into this report here that just makes sure you have done all the required customizing for that. The report works from a general setting point of view as well as for customer and vendor. So you can select what check you would like to do and then execute the check. You will see that in our activity document, in order to let you understand how this works, we basically ask you to first of all start this report and check the results. Obviously, since you have not yet done any activities, the report will show some red arrows on some things that are missing, and then you will be able to go through the activities and finally re-execute this report in order to check that everything has been done successfully. The previous one checks the customizing. This report here will check the mapping as well as the fact that a specific business partner has been created for every customer, vendor, and contact person existing. Also, in this case, we will ask you to execute the report first of all in order to get the first understanding of all the mapping you have done. And in red, in the screenshot, you can see all the options that are related to the mapping. So that's not yet synchronization, but just if you have mapped all the related values in the customizing, and then afterwards you will see that we execute the same also for the part related to the synchronization. Okay, the interesting part here is that if you have a red result from this last report, you can check what value has not been mapped or is missing in the customization, and then you can go back and customize that so that you can reiterate the execution of the report and check again if everything is okay. Once all these activities have been performed successfully, then we can start with the synchronization. The synchronization happens with the synchronization cockpit. This is a transaction that is available in ECC already. It's called NDS Load Cockpit. And once you execute this transaction, you will be able to see that there are always two directions for both the objects, customers and vendors. So you will be able to select, first of all, in the left-hand side, what is the direction. In our case, obviously, we will do customer to business partner and vendor to business partner. And then in the right-hand side, you are able basically to filter the objects you would like to synchronize. You can select your objects for the synchronization by specifying things like the number, the group, and so on. And you will see in the activity document that we suggest to do that. So you can start with a small amount of customers or vendors. In our case, it's even just one. So that you understand how this works, what is the related business partner created out of that, and then you can continue. In a real project, you can also decide to use the same functionality to have groups of customers and vendors that you convert instead of doing everything together. So you define different batches of 10, 50 maybe customers and vendors, and then one by one you go and check, for example, the result, the errors, and so on, so that it's going to be easier for you to control the synchronization and to troubleshoot in case of issues. Then you can execute the report, and this will basically, technically speaking, create a lot of requests that will be queued into the system and then executed one by one. Once you have started the execution, you can see the overall result of that execution. You can monitor the queue where the overall processing is happening, and in case you have any issue, there is a functionality called that is named called PPO, and it's an icon basically. Unfortunately, it's not really user-friendly, but once you know this is the correct icon, you press on that, and you will basically see all the logs. So you can see for every customer or vendor that you want to synchronize, which was the related business partner that has been generated, what is the number assigned to the business partner in case you have decided to change that number, and then obviously also the result, specific error if that's the case, and so on. So that's the way you then troubleshoot during the synchronization. Once you have executed that cockpit multiple times for all your customers and vendors, and the result is fine, then you can come back to the same report as before, this one, the pre-check upgradation report as it's called, and you can basically use the last three checks that are available here, and this will make sure that all your customers and vendors are replicated to business partner. It is important to note, we had some questions in the last execution, that this report will basically do the comparison of the customers, vendors, and business partner based on the numbering, not based on all the details. The details depends on the mapping, on the way you have configured the system, so this is not checked at this point. This will only check that for every customers or vendors in your system there is a corresponding business partner, so will not include the check that all the details you have on the customers are reflected into the business partner. That's up to the mapping, to the customization that you define. Again here, in case you have any issue when you execute the second report and you check that, here, for example, you can see in the example here in the screenshot that there are two contact persons that are not met, so they are not synchronized to business partner, and in this case, then obviously to resolve the issue, you will have to come back to the MDS load cockpit, so the synchronization cockpit, and run again, for example, the process to the related customers or vendors, and check that then these are synchronized successfully. Okay, once this is done, we have the conversion. The conversion will enable you to basically do the full technical conversion to S4, but there are no additional customer vendor integration actions or steps required at this point, so everything will be handled by the software update manager, by the technical tool, and you will not have to perform additional activities here. After the conversion is done, when we are in the post-processing, the conversion will automatically activate the synchronization between business partner and customer vendor. And at this point, you can then verify that the customizing is correct. And for example, you can do a test by creating a business partner and check the result in terms of customers and vendors. Now, looking quickly to the chapter, the best practice, we will upload that as well, if not yet there. I think I have uploaded, but if not, I will upload the document to the JAM as well. Now, how much time will be required to do all the steps we have seen so far? So the total time, as you can imagine, is a variant. It's something that can vary from few days to months. It really depends on different factors, on different complexity and situation. Now, for this reason, what we can tell you for sure are these factors. So what basically influence the most the complexity and the time required for the customer vendor integration. The first thing is the know-how. We have seen that mainly in the first conversions where the know-how was not spread yet, and this may also change a time because you need to go back and find information about that situation or that specific part. And that's also what we are trying to do here, so to teach you and to coach you on these topics so that you know what to do on a customer situation. Another thing that can change the overall complexity and time is the range complexity. I have talked about two situations, but as you really well know, in a customer you can find a lot of different variants on that. So you can find number ranges that are completely disjoint, number ranges that have some missing numbers in between, and so on. So that will basically increase the complexity on finding out the best solution. Another thing that is important is the consistency in terms of customizing, so how this has been configured in the past basically, and even most important is data quality. So in case of customers and vendors, how these have been maintained in the system is important because it will change basically the way the synchronization then works. You can have information that are missing as well, like for example the contact person for a customer, and in case this is missing, you will have to ask your customer to provide you this information, enrich the data, and then the synchronization will work. So in all these cases, it can be a long process because you have to ask the information, wait until it is provided, then maintain this information in the system and redo the synchronization. The other thing that normally really change the complexity and the duration are the enhancements or extensions, simply because they will have to be identified and managed during the CVI as a prerequisite, and obviously the data volume. So basically the data volume, it's another important part because depending on the number of customers and vendors, obviously the work will be much shorter or much longer depending on the number of objects you will have to deal with. Okay. Impact. So as of now we have talked about how to do the process, but now let's have a look to what is going to change or what will be the impact. The first thing is that generically speaking the impact on custom code is really low, and the reason for that is that, as said already, in any case customer and vendor master data tables will be filled. So whenever you have a custom code or an integration that is still based on those tables, on this data, they can continue to work simply because they are working with the same logic, and they will continue to have the updated data thanks to the customer vendor integration interface. So that's because the impact can be really simplified and minimized. There is a specific function module that, by the way, is changing with the next S4HANA feature package stack 2, but as of now it is CVIA inbound main. That's the main BAPI to code or function module to be called in order to change, create, or deal with customer vendor integration and business partner in particular. And we have then on top of that, as said, some OData services that are coming from the S/4HANA Cloud product into the on-premise as well. For that, you can have a look to the API app to find out what are the functions here. Okay, business partner approach. Here you see how you can upload and manage business partners from the interfaces or from the external world. In case you want to do that for data migration point of view, the LSMW itself is not supported anymore. So you will have to look at this data, at this note, where you will find all the details. We have a rapid data migration solution that we can offer here as well. We also have a migration cockpit that can be used here to upload data. The creation of business partner can also be done still using the old iDocs called Cremas and Detmas. Also in this case it's important to look at the notes because there are some corrections that are provided by these notes, and with that you will be able to find out how to prepare the system to be still supported for these iDocs. We have web services and we have some APIs as already explained. For the data model mapping and the services that you can use for that, there is a note containing an attached document where you can see it's a PDF with all the details. Okay. Impact on surrounding systems. The first thing is that there are some interfaces for side-by-side implementation of S/4HANA with other SAP products that are already prepared to handle business partners. These are things like SCM with the EWM part or the transportation management or the CRM. In this case, in any case, or as per default, there is already an integration and it will continue to work as per before. The BW report as well for customers and vendors, this will continue to work as before simply because the tables are still there and maintained, and that will allow the instructors to work exactly in the same way. Okay, some lesson learned. Here I'll go through these lesson learned as general learnings, but then you will find a presentation in the GEM that we will, by the way, also upload with the links that are not working anymore. And this presentation will contain much more than this generic lesson learned. It will contain a full troubleshooting session. So it's a section after this slide where you can find also some errors that are pretty common that are coming from existing projects with related solutions. So make sure you download this document and you check those information because they can help a lot in your future projects. As said, as a generic learning, every time we have different challenges, obviously, but it's important that to know that the expertise is the key ingredient for success here. And for this reason, we have basically also put together a lot of documentation. Meanwhile, in this topic, all the documentation we have, it's going to be in German as well. You will see that the enhancements cookbook as well as the generic cookbook for the customer vendor integration has been already made available there. And that's a long document describing the process as we have done today so far, with all the details, with all the reference to objects or transactions or programs you can find in the system in order to help you. We have said as well already that number range is really important, and that the enhancements can increase the complexity and the time required. That's why we always suggest to start the customer vendor integration test run in a sandbox with the production data. Production data is really important here, as it is really important. You will see that tomorrow for the finance-related part, because without real data from the productive environment, the test or the run that you do is not going to correspond, or it's not going to be related to the real production data. So you may find differences then when you execute the same in production. Latest notes are always required, and remember the business function to be activated in order to activate all the functionalities. Okay. Approach and consideration. Here we have, first of all, some consideration to be done now that all the process has been explained. The first thing is that, as you have seen, there is no downtime required for customer vendor integration. What will happen in the source system when you do the synchronization? It's simply that a corresponding business partner is going to be created. This object is not going to be used in any case before you complete the conversion to S4, and for this reason there is no required downtime. For the same reason, there is no need to wait until the last time and to basically include the customer vendor integration in the critical path of the conversion to S4. So make sure you manage that activity as early as possible. You start this activity as early as possible. Whenever you have your sandbox system available as a copy of production, this can be already managed. We see sometimes even customer vendor integration be a small project that is managed before the conversion to S4, and this is also possible. So you can start the activities related to customer vendor integration as a separate project when the conversion itself is not yet started, and then in the context of the conversion to S4, you will then manage the delta synchronization of the new customers and vendors that have been created meanwhile. Here you see the procedure. I already explained that, so I'm not going to repeat myself. You start from a sandbox system where you do all the correction, where you do all the synchronization, and for every step that you have then performed in the sandbox, you have already a solution, you have already a consolidated procedure, and you can execute the same in your production environment. Okay. Additional features, here you see some basic functionalities that we have added on top. These have been requested a lot from customers. So customer classification is available. As of now, is already available as part of S4. Contact person can be created by Copilot. Consumer conversion is also possible, and the one-time customer or one-time supplier conversion is included as well as of now into the S4. Okay, that was it for customer vendor integration. Now, before going to the questions, that I've seen there are a lot in the chat, so I will go through all of them in a second. Let me first go through the remaining two topics that are going to be much smaller in terms of content and time than the customer vendor integration, and then we come to the end of the presentation together with questions and answers. The first thing is storage location MRP. So let's have a look why this is relevant for us. First of all, business context. This is directly extracted from the simplification list, so that's what you typically find in simplification list whenever you see an item is relevant. Now, in the ERP world, storage locations are objects that you can use to exclude or include those from the MRP planning. So you can use this functionality to have something that is planned in a separate way from other storage locations, for example, and this was the functionality available. At the same time, still in ECC, we have another concept called MRP area that cover the same business requirement plus something else. So in this case, the materials that you have with a specific MRP area can be used still for this storage location, can be excluded from MRP as well, and you can then obtain exactly the same result in terms of planning in a separate way, these ones, as you are already doing with storage location. For this reason, we can say, or we can conclude saying that storage location, it's basically a subset of what you can do with MRP areas. And since you know we are working with the principle of one, where we try to simplify and make available only one functionality out of the multiple we used to have for the same business requirement. That is what happened with the storage location. So storage location is not available anymore, and planning for the MRP can be done at the level of MRP area. So you can replace basically this concept with MRP area. Now, this means that there is some work to do, and this work is a preparation work. So also in this case, we made available for you a report. The report is called MRP Area Storage Location Migration, and it basically does two things. It can, first of all, check the prerequisites. So these are different prerequisites that will have to be fulfilled before you can start with that. And the second thing that the report will do whenever all the prerequisites are met will be to basically generate the material master records for the MRP area. So this will be done automatically by the report, but you have to make sure that the prerequisites are done. So the activities to be performed in this case are all the prerequisite activities, and you will find those documented into our activity document, and then you will have to execute a report. So you will see that there are no errors, that the report executes correctly, and this will basically generate the material master data with the corresponding MRP area associated. This is one thing that we have in our system. You have found this yesterday in the pre-checks, and so we have to deal with that. And now the second topic is material number fin length extension, which is another topic that in this case is not included in our program, so it's not in scope for 10 steps to S4, but in any case we want to go through that because it's a really common topic. It's also really commonly mentioned during discussion about S4HANA, so we want to be sure you are aware of this, you are aware of the implications and the changes related to that. Here you see again an instruction from the simplification list where you can see that the basic change is related to the material number. By default is or used to be 18 characters, And with S/4HANA, you have the possibility to extend these to 4 characters. Now, for some customers, this will be not required. So they can continue to work and to operate having the 18 characters because it allows them basically to have a number range that is large enough to handle whatever material they have today and whatever material they will have tomorrow, even if they extend or they start managing more materials or products. In other cases, you may realize during the conversion that having an extension of material number is a good option because you have a shortage of numbers in the current range, and having the possibility to extend this is going to be a value for the customer. Then in this case, you can decide to activate the functionality. And I'm saying it in this way because by default, the functionality will not be activated. So you will see that in our case, for example, the material number is 18 characters. In our system, we will not activate anything. So you will not do the activation of this functionality, and the material number will remain 18 characters as before. Now, this is optional. This means this is optional, as you can see here. And there are different activities or different impacts depending what is your decision. Here you see the two possible decisions. In the left-hand side, behavior without activating this functionality. And that's also the standard configuration you will find after a whatever conversion to S4. Or, optionally, right-hand side of this slide, you can activate the functionality after the conversion, and then obviously you have a different behavior. The behavior, if you do not activate the functionality, left-hand side of this slide, is that basically everything will remain the same. Obviously, if you communicate with other systems that are not the possibility to extend the material number or to handle the integration will continue to work as before, and you will be able basically to operate in the same way. On the right-hand side, on the other end, if you decide to activate, then you will be able to extend this material number to 4 characters. You will have to decide how you handle that. You can change the number range. You can decide just to extend that. And at this point, you will be able, obviously, to communicate the full material number, to create new material numbers with additional digits, so you can cover the full range you have with 40 characters. And you will have obviously an impact on the system because something is changed. You will have an impact internally. So if you have some code that is internally managed in order to transfer or deal with material number, you will have to be sure that this is prepared to handle the 40 characters. And for that, we have the custom code analysis you have seen yesterday. We have a specific section of that that is fully dedicated to the long material number. So you will be able to automatically detect if there are programs that are dealing with material number, but just with, for example, a char 18 variable, and so this will not be supported and working once you have the 40 characters. The other part will be the user interface. So in this case, obviously, if you have a UI or a form that uses the material number, you will have to adapt that. As usual, for everything that is standard SAP, we have done that already. So it is fully ready to have the integration with 40 characters. But in case you have something custom, you will have to adapt that. And last but not least, integration with external systems. So in this case, the full 40 characters will be transferred, and you need to be sure that the system can handle the 40 character and not just the short one. Okay, closure and call to action. Let's have a look to what you will do today and what are the steps required. First of all, the only system that is required for the 2 days activities is the source system, so the ECC 6.0 announcement package 6 you have available. The system ID is K01226, so this is the system to be used for today depending on your group number. And here you will do business partner customization, the customer vendor integration, and then also the storage location MRP, so the customization and the conversion or migration of the master data details. And then, last but not least, as I said, we will not be activating the log material number, but we give you the possibility to check the report so that you can understand what it does and how this check report works. This will analyze all the tables in order to understand how you are using the material numbers and in which tables this field is used, so you can run the job and check the result to see what is an example of a result you will have on your customer system. These are the activities for today, and in terms of call to action, as usual, review the presentation in the GEM, execute the activity documents for the logistic preparation activities. In this case, we have just one document, one activity document and one preparation document. I remind you that the preparation document, that is the one with the prefix PRE, this is something containing activities we have already done in the system in order to prepare. In this specific case, you will find there the implementation of all the nodes that are required, and so you don't have to do it again in the system. You just have to go through the activity document that is marked in the name by ACT, and this means it's the activity document you have to follow. In any case, if you open the document, introduction chapter, we explain you this concept again, so make sure you are following the right one. And then, last but not least, collaborate using GEM. So in case you have issues or doubts, as worked well already really well yesterday, you can use GEM, post your questions, and we will have a look to that during the day. Now, that said, we are at the Q&A, so if you have any question or additional question, please use the chat, or you can unmute your line, press star 6 on your keypad, and then you can ask verbally your question. And while you think about new questions, I will go through the chat, so I can answer the questions that have been already posted there. Okay, there is an interesting question about business partner that is basically related to the conversion of or the possibility to have just one business partner corresponding to something that was previously created as customer and vendor as well. This situation is something really common. Typically, it's minority of customers and vendors that have this specific characteristic, but it can depend also on the type of industry. But to answer the question, you will find this exact case in the documentation. So we will tell you basically how to analyze the situation, initially checking that the customer has a vendor assigned and vice versa. And then you will see that by default the synchronization cockpit will simply synchronize both of them. So the customer and the vendor will generate two different business partners. This will be the case. Then what you can decide to do is basically you can decide for one of the two business partners that have been created, for example the customer. You can maintain that, assigning then also the roles for vendor. And once this is done, you can then basically flag your business partner for the vendor for deletion, and this will then allow you to keep just one out of the two. So this is something that you can do, and you will see how to do it in the documentation we have prepared. So in terms of number range, there was a question related to the double number range. So no, it depends on how you decide to do so. If you decide to reuse the existing number range, you can continue in the numbering of new objects with the same number range. So you can basically start from the last one that has been used by the customer and then go on with the new objects. In other cases where you're not able to do that, yes, then it means you will have two number ranges. One that will be used for the synchronization, another one that will be used afterwards. The BAPI customer create from I'm not sure, but I would assume that is not available because it creates a customer. Well, I will double check that, but I don't think so because the BAPI we explicitly said here, so that shouldn't be available. Any way of migrating data without cleansing? Well, this is possible as far as your data would not, let's say, interfere with the basic checks. So if the address is wrong or is wrongly identified in the source data, as far as this is not a blocker for creating a business partner, yes, you will be able to migrate that. There are specific situations where this is not possible, but are mostly related to data that is incomplete, rather than not cleansing. So if for example, a contact person is completely missing for a customer, then it's not possible to do the migration. If the contact person is available but there is something wrong in the way it is specified, then yes, you can anyhow complete the migration. The data will be migrated as it is, and then you can optionally clean up that afterwards. I assume CVI needs to be done during daily work in the productive system. Yes, that's correct. So you can do that during the daily work because it does not interfere with the productive environment. Okay, IDOC, as you have seen, yes, it remains the same. There is, let's call it a trick behind, in the sense that instead of calling the standard function module for the IDOC, there is a specific one that creates a business partner. Okay, if you have a lot of overlappings and, well, all your customers are also vendor, which is a bit strange or not common, but let's assume that's the situation, then yes, you can also create another range for business partner, which is totally disjoint from the number range you have on customers and vendors, and then do the migration in this way. By the way, in the documentation you will find for this program, that's the approach we have taken, so you will also be able to see what happens. The only disadvantage of doing that is that if you create a new disjoint number range, then it's going to be more difficult to get the corresponding customer and vendor justice. So obviously the name that you use to identify that company, it's most probably going to be the same, but the number is going to be different. As far as this is something you can handle or the customer wants, then this is totally fine. What happens with a vendor that is also customer? Okay, that's already done. Usually vendor and customer. So for business partner, there are different views for the transaction BP. So yeah, it's not, it's something you can handle. Obviously, the creation of a customer will be at the beginning similar to the creation of a vendor as well. But then afterwards, once you assign the roles, you will be able to basically handle the different ones. So it has a common procedure at the beginning and then it's different. So yeah, I assume that can be handled if there are different departments. Inconsistency with synchronization with S4HANA, are there? Well, here inconsistencies are normally resolved cleaning the source. So since it is not finance data, as you will see tomorrow, we don't have an automatic report to do that. You simply go into the source data of your customer and you change the detail or the specific attribute that is not correct, and then you do the synchronization again. We don't have any advanced correction reports. The only corrections reports we have are the ones I showed you, and this will allow you to identify the error. I'm not sure for Håkan what you mean with DIMP, Llama, and material number. So DIMP Llama is the old functionality that was available for activating the long material number. In case you have that already activated in the system, there is a specific procedure you have to follow in order to convert to S4HANA with long material number still activated. So in that case, it's going to be different. In case they are not yet activated, then you can simply follow everything I explained in the documentation. You find a restriction note for S4HANA 1709, and in there is the explanation of the procedure in case you have the Llama already activated. Forms will need to be reviewed. Yes, that's correct. So if you have a custom form you have already created to, I don't know, print out or do the output of whatever document, and it has the non-extended material number, whenever you switch to the long material number, you will have to change the document form as well. By the way, you will see output management on Work Package 7. You will see that we offer new forms now from SAP as standard ones that are all Adobe forms that can print out PDF documents. These forms already contain the extended material number, obviously, but if you have a custom one, yes, obviously you will have. The link between customer and vendor is not a precondition in a sense that in any case will not be considered by the synchronization cockpit. That said, if you have a customer that is already linked to a vendor, and vice versa, the vendor that is already linked to a customer, the synchronization cockpit will anyhow create two business partners, one for the customer and one for the vendor. So if they are already linked, you will find a link also in the object that are created. If they are not linked, you will not find this link or this value, but it will not be handled automatically by that. The presentation obviously is available in GEM. Yeah. So for the 18-digit material number, all the functionalities are still supported. So that will continue to work as before. Then activating extended material number for other systems, this obviously will have an impact. So one of the things to be checked is that the standard interface or integration with those systems can handle the 40 character. We have few exceptions where this is not possible. FNR, I don't know, but I can check that for you if you post the same question in GEM. Okay, question about the COPA. No, as far as I know, there are no issues or implication for the raw material number, but I will double check that for you. Yeah, obviously BW, yes, you already know that, but no, COPA doesn't ring any bell for me, so I've never seen any issue for that, just for the raw material number. But yeah, if you post the same question in GEM, I will have a look if there's something specific for that. A output determination process, that's not a topic for today. It's a topic for Work Package 7. So yes, there may be a change in the sense that we introduce a totally new output determination mechanism with S4HANA, and it's up to you to decide to use the new one or activate the old one. But again, if you participate to the Work Package 7 session next Tuesday, you will be able to check all the details and also to practice that with the exercise or with the activities we have prepared for you. Okay, that said, is there any other question out there? Okay, I take that as a no, since I don't see anybody typing in the chat anymore. So I thank you very much for the participation to today's work package. As said before, documentation has been published for the activity document and the pre-document in the GEM, so you can start working directly in your system. And in case you have not yet completed the activities from yesterday, you can continue in parallel to do that, to do so for work package 2 as well. I thank you very much, and I will talk to you again tomorrow for the next work package, which is work package 4, that is going to be all about finance preparation activities. So thank you very much, and talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.